Ever feel like you suck at this job? Motherhood, I mean. Have too much anxiety and not enough patience? Too much yelling, not enough play? There's no manual, no village, no guarantees. The stakes are high. We want so badly to get it right. But this is survival mode. We're just trying to make it to bedtime. So if you're full of mom guilt, your temper scares you, you feel like you're screwing everything up, and you're afraid to admit any of those things out loud, this podcast is for you. This is Failing Motherhood. I'm Danielle Bettman, and each week we'll chat with a mom ready to be real, sharing her insecurities, her fears, her failures, and her wins. We do not have it all figured out. That's not the goal. The goal is to remind you, you are the mom your kids need. They need what you have, you are good enough, and you're not alone. I hope you pop in earbuds, somehow sneak away, and get ready to hear some hope from the trenches. You belong here, friend. We're so glad you're here. Hey, it's Danielle, your positive discipline certified parenting coach for strong-willed kids ages 2 to 10. I help defeated parents find validation, support, and proven techniques to parent their strong-willed kids with composure, connection, confidence, and cooperation through a 4-month group coaching program based on the wholehearted framework I've developed over years of working with families one-on-one. And if you just found the podcast, go to failingmotherhood.com to view a playlist of our most listened to episodes, as well as where to start if you have a strong-willed child. And in this episode today, we are going to talk about why weekends are particularly hard to parent your strong-willed child, your 2 goals that you should go into each weekend with, and my 5 top tips for making weekends easier on everyone. So if weekends seem harder than weekdays at your house, you are not alone. This episode was actually inspired by a one-on-one conversation I had with a client yesterday, and we broke this down, and it is so normal for weekends to be more challenging. Here's just a couple reasons why. Number 1, you don't have the momentum of the obligations of school and work and the structure there cementing your certainty and your boundaries. You know that there is consequences for you as a parent if your child is truant, right? So it's easier to have complete confidence and certainty of the time you need to leave the house on a weekday, as opposed to the boundary of we need to leave to go get groceries on a Saturday. That feels harder to enforce. There's just a lot more ambiguity, and your child knows it too. Number 2, weekends are hard because there are more challenging dynamics at play. During the week, you may pick up one child before the other. You may be parenting solo before the other parent gets home. On the weekends, typically, if you have another parent with you, then you are together, trying to parent together on the weekends, or siblings are together much more often. So, of course, that's going to be more opportunity for conflict. And number 3, weekends are more challenging because your child is without the structure they thrive with. During the week, as much as they won't admit it, they really do prefer the momentum of one thing after another, and that order and that predictability. They really do love knowing what to expect and being able to wake up knowing that. And on the weekends, they're typically much more unpredictable. So, knowing that weekends are hard, right? I'm preaching to the choir. We don't need to go any more into that. You know, I know, we all know, right? Welcome to the club. What are the 2 goals that you should go into every weekend with? The first goal, tackle the unpredictability. Because in your child's mind, right, sometimes we stay home in our pajamas until noon. Sometimes we have to wake up early and rush out to sports. Sometimes we have to go shopping, then we come home, and then we go back out shopping again. And in their mind, they always have questions. The question of, when do I get to watch screens? When do I get to play when I want to play? When do I get to go see my friend? Right? And the problem is when they don't know the answer, or don't even have maybe the expressive vocabulary to ask it or know that that's why they're kind of antsy, then they will make their favorite answer their reality, which is no, and forever and always, right? So that welcomes resistance and the lack of cooperation because they have set out that it is their mission to create the answers they want to see in the world. They have a lot of initiative, which is great, and they have a lot of persistence and determination and strong opinions. And we either get to work with that or against that. So when it feels like you're working against that, because you have different answers of when they actually get screens and get to play and see their friend and etc. during the weekend, because you woke up with completely different plans than the expectations that they woke up with, which might be completely unrealistic, but no one told them that and you can't read their mind, you're set up to fail before you even wake up, right? So the first goal, tackle the unpredictability. The second goal on weekends, add loose structure that sets some terms and conditions so everyone is not held hostage. And freedom and flexibility on the weekends is possible. Now, hear me say, you do not need, just because you have a strong-willed child, you do not need strict and rigid monotony, having every weekend the same. But you do need to be set up for success. Clearly communicate your expectations when you know them, and be able to have some predictability set by loose structure that puts everyone at ease because life makes sense and they know what's coming. So those are your 2 goals. Now let's get into the 5 top tips to make weekends easier on everyone. The first is always going to be mindset. Now, my clients know we don't get into strategies until you have the right mindset and the headspace and the capacity to actually understand the deeper root of the problem, actually be able to kind of calibrate yourself to being able to have a different reaction and different approach possible, and give you the tools to then assimilate that new information in a way that feels feasible and have the ability to implement it. What I talked to my client about yesterday is she kind of had a realization in real time while documenting how weekends currently go. And she was saying, on school mornings, I'm typically solo focused on getting them ready first, and then I get myself ready. And I completely embrace and kind of radically accept the idea that they really need and work well when body doubled. So that might look like me staying in their room, helping them walk them through the choices of what to get dressed with, or inviting them to bring their clothes into my room or brushing their teeth with me in my bathroom. And that really expedites things and gets them down into a more independent tasks like breakfast. And on the weekends, I'm typically multitasking. I'm trying to get to all the things that I typically don't have time for on the weekend, maybe cleaning, maybe some computer tasks, whatever that might look like. And I'm expecting them to get dressed on their own, to get themselves ready at the same time that I might be getting myself ready. And it doesn't work, right? It blows up in my face. It takes 100 times longer. And in worst cases, it ends up being a meltdown, drag out power struggle that makes us 2 hours late for whatever event we were trying to go to. So how does mindset come into this situation? Well, we talked about why weekends are objectively more challenging, and a lot of that was the circumstances surrounding how it feels different to your child. But how are you a different parent on the weekends versus the parent you are on weekdays? You likely also thrive off of the momentum of the structure and the expectations set before you. you also are able to be more in tune and present and connected to your child on maybe a weekday morning than on the weekend when your brain is in 1,000 different places. And neither of those objective facts are wrong or bad. They're just an observation. And it's important to actually audit and get a true look at what's going on so that you can make the right next decision and be an actually good, wise leader in your house, right? So what this parent recognized was she had a completely different approach on the weekends versus the weekdays. So it's really not that surprising that her child had a different behavior and reaction to that approach on the weekends versus the weekdays. And so we talked about how to manage that, knowing that, without it being this huge all or nothing shift. And that incorporates a couple of the other tips that we're going to be talking through. But the first piece of mindset is to ask yourself that question: how are you a different parent on the weekends? And another thing that this parent realized is, well, I seem to expect more out of the weekends, right? More independence, more kind of autonomy and understanding of time and being able to transition. Because, I mean, truly, I'm not asking for a lot. I'm giving you a lot of freedom. There's not a lot expected of you. So when I do ask you something, I expect you to do it, right? I feel like the bar is lower, so I'm expecting more. And that is not wrong, again, but it's worth considering if that truly makes sense in a way that translates to that intention and that message actually being what your child experiences and makes sense to them. I would recommend thinking through, yes, there are less expectations, but that also means that they're not any more set up to cooperate with those expectations. The number of expectations doesn't set the bar for how cooperative your child is going to be. Asking less of them does not equate to a more cooperative child. Sometimes that can actually backfire and create more bad habits toward permissive parenting and resentment between your relationship and that child not being able to take accountability and understand the consequences of their actions. So that intention of wanting to give them more freedom on the weekends might actually be making things worse. And that doesn't mean you need to boss them around and make their weekends like they are, the house cleaner of your house. But it's worth considering, where are you at in that balance? And the last piece I'll say on mindset is, when we think about weekends, sometimes our expectations are unrealistic. And what I mean by that is the idea of not having a strict schedule on the weekend, not having to go from here to here to here to here like we do on the weekdays, sounds nice, sounds freeing, sounds like exactly what we need. But is it nice and freeing and exactly what you need if what the actual reality of the weekend is met with constant resistance, argument, conflict, sibling rivalry, resentment in your relationship, burnout, and no one's tanks being refilled? Probably not. So we have to find a balance. It's not an all or nothing. We just get to abandon all of our structure and all of our tools on the weekend just so that we feel like there's not things expected of us. That will never go away as a parent, and sometimes that actually does make our lived reality worse. We're not any happier. So that's just some food for thought on the mindset piece. Now let's move into tip 2. Make one guarantee. Make one guarantee like, if your goal is to tackle the unpredictability and answer that question your child is likely asking, like, when do I get to play with my friend? When do I get to have screens, etc.? Answer that question up front so that you don't invite all of the behavior that they jump to the conclusion that is necessary to be able to answer that question. So that might look like saying our one guarantee, no matter what our plans are for the weekend, is you always will have an extra hour of screen time, right? So that might look like saying, depending on our plans, it's either an extra hour on Saturday morning or Saturday night. And then on Friday, you check in with them and say, okay, today we have basketball Saturday morning, so your extra hour screens will be after dinner Saturday night. You don't know how many power struggles that you just nipped in the bud by being one step ahead of them and letting them know that plan, especially a whole day ahead of time. Now, of course, age is going to play into this. There's a lot of nuance with strategy, and I always give that disclaimer. But guarantees, non-negotiable guarantees, help free up the uncertainty, the energy in your child's head that is spent needing and wanting to and feeling justified to push for more of what they want when they don't feel like there's a clear, concrete answer. And again, we feel like we shouldn't have to have these more firm boundaries on the weekends. We would love for it to be laissez-faire, do whatever. But that's not actually fun when it's lived out, right? We just established that with the mindset piece. So make one guarantee that still is flexible. It can ebb and flow with your plans for the weekend. It doesn't lock you in to always have to be home until noon on Saturdays. But you're answering the question before it's asked, eliminating problem behaviors before they start. That's tip 2. Tip 3, when it's not working, the plan's got to change. What that looks like is, if typically on weekdays, your family rule is that your kids have to get dressed before they come down the stairs for breakfast, right? That's kind of the typical expectation, and it works. On the weekends, maybe you don't enforce that boundary. So they come downstairs, they may wake up early, they hang out on the couch, watch some Saturday morning cartoons, and then typically you want to leave the house around 11 a.m., and then asking them to change out of their pajamas at 10:30 becomes an issue. And not only is it an issue one Saturday, but every single Saturday. Then you have full permission to step back and recognize that pattern and put a stop to it, because otherwise it's the definition of insanity, right? You want to maybe give your child that freedom, but if it's not working, it's not working. And you need to be able to say, maybe even outside of that, heated moment, be able to just say, hey, this isn't working. I can't let you stay in your pajamas until 10:30 anymore on Saturday mornings because we have a really hard time stopping what you're doing and doing it before we have to leave the house. And it is changing our plans, and it is affecting everyone in the house, and it's putting us all in bad moods, and I don't like fighting with you. So just like school days, I have no choice but to insist that you still get dressed before coming downstairs, even if we're not sure what our plans are, because if and when we need to leave the house, we will be able to without fighting. And I want that for us. You could still provide some compromise or ability to negotiate within that. It doesn't have to be exactly that script. I'm only illustrating it so that you feel like you understand what that looks like. But you need to be able to find patterns and think strategically and get ahead of solving a problem instead of playing out insanity, thinking surely this Saturday will be different. Okay, so that's step number 3. Top tip number 4, make time to make a plan. You do not have to have your complete weekend ironed out on Friday night and be able to communicate the whole thing to your child with timestamps and everything. That's unrealistic, and I don't think that's actually even necessary or fair to anyone. I would love for you to wake up on Saturday and then be inspired by maybe a yard work project that you want to do, or something that you haven't gotten to that you forgot about that you want to then work on, or whatever that looks like at your house that weekend. The problem is all of that stuff that's in your head isn't clearly communicated to your child. So of course, at some point, their expectations and your expectations are going to come crashing together and directly compete, and then create a conflict, meltdown, disaster, fiasco, dolly drama. Okay? So if and when you don't have plans for the weekend, and there is a lot of ambiguity around maybe the one event you have on your calendar, then set a expectation that at 11 a.m., you're going to set up your plan for the day. So that might look like everyone rolling out of bed at their own time, turning on the TV, staying in pajamas, etc., etc. At 11, there's a understanding that was set way beforehand where everyone in your family knows by 11 a.m., we all meet at the dinner table and make a quick plan for the day. And you, as the leader of your house, are going to literally sit there with some paper and say, what do we need to do? What would we like to do? And that's when you can share, here's what needs to get done, or here's what I would like to do today. And that can even be, the plan is, we're not going anywhere, right? We're all staying home today. Stay in your pajamas. We don't need to go anywhere, or if someone's sick, we're staying home. But if that's still not communicated all day, you don't understand the level of uncertainty that is driving your child's behavior that entire day. So you're allowed to not have one, then have that opportunity to set one, and then that sets your expectations accordingly for the rest of the day. So that might look like saying, all right, we need to get groceries at Costco today. I'd like to go around 1 o'clock. It's now 11. I need everyone ready by 12:30. I'm going to start making lunch at 12. Okay, great. That helps so much get ahead of any issues that were going to come up at 12:45 when you sprung it on them, right? And they had already set in place a whole battle with their video game friends, right? Don't underestimate just how much that front loading and setting a plan before things become an issue can create so much more freedom for you. So that's number 4, make a plan. And number 5, have a weekly check-in with your partner. Now, if you are parenting on the weekends and you experience a lot more stress of trying to parent on the same page, or trying to not undermine each other, or knowing that your child reacts differently when you're both in the room, then you need to be able to plan around that, work with it, and get ahead of that. Actually address it. Stop perpetuating that weekend after weekend after weekend, surprised every time it happens again, right? So you need to be able to have a one-time outlet each week that you treat your family like you would the minimum on a business, and have an agenda that's running throughout the week, maybe on a notes app on your phone, on the fridge, or in your head, of things to check in with your partner with. That might give you the freedom to not address something, correct them, criticize them in the moment, but put it on the agenda to say, hey, when we talk on Friday night, I'm going to make sure to bring that up and explain to them why I handled that behavior in this way, or why, we need to do this differently on the weekend. Why we need a new bedtime routine, whatever that looks like. And then you can also at that point manage each other's expectations for the weekend or week ahead. What do we need to get done? What do we have to do? What would we like to do? Being able to, again, have that outlet where you feel heard, they feel heard. You don't know how many potential conflicts and fires you just put out before they started. And now you can go into the weekend with a united front and more confidence and certainty while you parent in the moment, knowing with ESP where the other parent's already at and what they're expecting or where they want to be. Those are my 5 top tips. Check your mindset. Make one guarantee. change it if it's not working, make time to make a plan, and have a weekly check-in with your partner. And that will help you with those two goals of tackling the unpredictability of weekends and adding in loose structure that actually unlocks the freedom you're looking for. I hope this helps. I'm so glad you're here. And if you haven't yet, make sure you check out my free masterclass, Calm and Confident, on my website, parentingwholeheartedly.com, where you can master the kind and firm approach your strong-willed child needs without crushing their spirit or walking on eggshells. And be sure to watch it with your partner, as they'll be able to identify themselves as one of the 3 types of parents of a strong-willed child and unlock an entirely new understanding of how to work with the way your child is wired. I believe in you, and I'm cheering you on. Have a great weekend. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Failing Motherhood. Your kids are so lucky to have you. If you loved this episode, take a screenshot right now and share it in your Instagram stories and tag me. If you're loving the podcast, be sure that you've subscribed and leave a review so we can help more moms know that they are not alone if they feel like they're failing motherhood on a daily basis. And if you're ready to transform your relationship with your strong-willed child and invest in the support you need to make it happen, schedule your free consultation using the link in the show notes. I can't wait to meet you. Thanks for coming on this journey with me. I believe in you, and I'm cheering you on.